Good afternoon. It's a little after 1. We are starting early today. Today we're looking at European culture. We're wrapping up European history. We've been flying through history from the Greek era to the Roman era into the Middle Ages, and from there we went on and had a look at the Enlightenment, the period of Enlightenment, and then we were gradually smoothing into this century, or the previous century actually, looking at World War One and World War Two and how these were connected. And today we are going to wrap up World War Two and look at what happened afterwards, because Europe became divided between East and West, and we had the period of the student protests, the Flower Power movement, which shaped, I believe, was a very important factor in understanding Europe today. So yeah, we looked at Europe from a lot of dimensions, from a lot of angles. We saw that the people have been moving. We saw that there were two major civilizations that originated from Europe: Greek and Roman. We have been looking at religion, which played an important factor. The Catholic Church, how that came into existence, the response from the Reformation, the role of the nobles, the kings, the landowners, and how they actually shared power with the Catholic Church. How that actually fed into the Reformation, and the Reformation is still a dividing factor in Europe. Roughly speaking, north and south, where south is Catholic, north is Protestant. And culturally speaking, that also means something. Whereas Protestant people, have a more frugal, a less, well, how to say, exorbitant lifestyle than Catholics. Generally speaking, we can see that in the way fashion. Where does fashion come from? It's almost exclusively from the Catholic area. The best food in Europe you can find in southern part of Europe, like France, Italy. They have much more attention for food, for the good things in life. Whereas Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, ma Bethany, it doesn't matter whether it's so gorgeous, as long as it fills you and it gives you a good nutrition, then the food fulfills its main purpose. Of course, these are generalizations, and we can see that religion at the moment in Europe is playing less and less a role. Churches are no longer filled. We see in the Netherlands, for example, that there are so few people that go to church that churches are being repurposed. Sometimes they're being inhabited by, for example, marketplaces and hotels and you name it. So these buildings are becoming obsolete because people no longer go to church. But that doesn't mean that the influence of those churches is completely gone. It's still maybe not so much as a religious institute, but a cultural institute. Certainly, it still plays its role in culture today. Need to add to that, and we are not really going to focus on that too much. But also, Europe, of course, has a large influx of foreign people, foreign workers, mainly from North Africa, former colonies that are currently living in Europe as a first or second or even third generation immigrants into European society, and they also play their role bringing Muslim religion closer to everyday life. So that's And as we have seen in previous episode of UNESCO, the integration issues. How can we integrate those peoples into our society? Speaking for the Netherlands, we had long had a multicultural society, just like England, for example, which basically allowed us to address people with different backgrounds differently. As opposed to France, for example, where France says, okay, égalité, liberté, fraternité, where égalité means equality for all, which meant that everybody could only expect the same treatment. Now, from integration issues, we saw initially that England had more than their fair share of integration issues, and the Netherlands and Belgium, for that matter. But that is changing now, because also France seems to be affected. So it doesn't seem to be that there is a much difference in outcome when it comes to integration, whether you choose a multicultural or an egalitarian society. Integration issues are there, and they need to be addressed. And with the influx of more immigrants from North Africa, and Middle East, and North Africa, we can expect that to continue for some time. So a heterogeneous society as a whole will make the comparison with Japan more difficult. But what that is not to say that perhaps Japan will also will have to accept more immigrants into their society if they want to play a stronger political role. Because if you don't take a responsibility, then maybe they will not be able to let their voice be heard when it comes to representing their own interests in international affairs. But we were talking about World War I. We saw how that basically exploded with a seemingly insignificant event, the murder of a prince in Sarajevo, that culminated into a world war through all kinds of alliances. First of all, of course, Austria, where the prince was from, protested, and they wanted to call basically Yugoslavia or Serbia to order, but they were afraid that if Serbia was to call to order by Austria, that would mean that Russia would get involved, and indeed Russia mobilized. So instead of declaring war outright, they actually went to Germany and asked for their okay. Germany said, well, that's okay, because they thought that actually by doing that they would basically create more stable situation, but the reverse happened, because when Germany gave their okay, Austria interpreted that as a go-ahead and start a war. Germany wants a war, which was actually, in retrospect, not really the case. It was more that Austria started to become rather reckless. It was more the fact that Russia already put their troops in front of the border of Serbia, ready to invade the moment Austria would start the attack. That triggered it. So when Austria finally declared war on Serbia, the Russian troops were already there. Actually, Austria was not even ready; that they hadn't even mobilized their troops yet. So that was a problem. Then England got involved, and the story escalated from there. World War I gave a lot of casualties. A lot of people died in the trenches, especially in Belgium and northern France. It lasted long. The damages were enormous, and after the war, basically, that was lost by Germany. They were given the blame for the war. They were blamed as being the originator of World War I. and they had to pay reparation payments to an extent that they were so high that it was impossible for the German economy to carry that debt. That basically gave that, so the fact that they were blamed for World War I plus the high reparation payments, that led to dissatisfaction among the German people, that led to a leader, like an absolute leader like Adolf Hitler, to come to power. We saw in the video last week on Monday how Adolf Hitler came to power on a democratic way. First he tried to commit like a coup d'état in Munich. That failed miserably. He went to jail, wrote Mein Kampf, his autobiography, or his political statement, and he was released from prison already, rather quickly, I believe within a year. And he rose to the ranks. He started the NSDAP, which was his political party, and he got a lot of followers, elected, then very quickly reformed the law to create an absolute power for himself and his party. And he was going to start, he was getting more and more ready to start a war. He invested heavily in growing his weaponry, and getting ready to start this war in 1939, I believe, 1938. There was the Anschluss. The Anschluss, it was called. Basically, Austria and Germany became one, as a political matter, not so much as an invasion, but because they chose to be one. Austria wanted to be one with Germany, so that became one country. Then there was the issue of the Sudeten Germans, which has a lot of parallels, I believe, with Ukraine as we see it today, where Sudeten Germany was actually a part of Poland, and Poland, in that area, a lot of ethnic Germans lived there. They wanted to be part of Germany as well, so but according to Germany, they were suppressed by the Polish authorities, and to protect their own citizens, their own people, Germany invaded Sudeten Germany, Sudetenland, and then invaded Poland. That was the beginning of it. That was where diplomacy started to crumble. The Western powers, England, France, they protested, and they actually, following that, they declared war. In the meantime, France had been building up the Malinoli line on the border between France and Germany, to create a wall against a German invasion. So Germany actually looked at the map and thought, well, why would we go through that line? We just attack from the north. So they invaded the Netherlands, they invaded Belgium, they invaded France, and then actually there was only England there to stand up for Europe. Initially, it was really only England. There was it was kind of a peace treaty between Russia and Germany, so they didn't have anything to fear from Russia at that time. But Hitler made a capital error by breaking that treaty and going after Russia, which we know that he lost. So looking at where we left off last Monday, let me see what this was.
Yeah, back to the British mainland,
Right.
so they could defend Britain from what now seemed like an inevitable invasion. Dubbed Operation Dynamo, a huge armada of fishing boats, pleasure crafts, and even rowboats were assembled on the southeast coast of England.
I think we've seen this
to make
on Monday. So
This country.
No, that's we saw until
right.
27.
Yes. Okay. So basically, I think that I showed this video especially as a build-up towards the war to illustrate the political dynamism that was going on. Why was Hitler becoming? Why did Hitler get to power? What was the response of the Allied nations against Germany? So they tried to avoid a war at almost at all costs. Germany was obviously on its way to start the war. They needed the war to recover their economy. They needed to recover the economy to get the support of the people. So this was actually already a more or less by design. A war was to happen if it was up to Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler, he made a bold decision to basically open up the state's finances. First, the economy had been destroyed, but that helped them to pay off their war debts. Then after that happened, after hyperinflation and financial restructuring, they used their state finances to actually build up this weapon industry, and that created a lot of jobs, and that grew the German economy. So they very quickly recovered after the period of hyperinflation. So that people felt, okay, well, Hitler, he may have a big mouth, but actually he's delivering results. He's creating a Wirtschaftswunder, it's called in German, and it's an economical miracle, and that gave him more and more support. Hitler also made it a point as to create a common enemy. It's dangerous to draw parallels, but I would say that the Mexicans they are kind of fulfilling that role today in the United States, and that was easy. That made it gave them a reason to unite, driven by the success of the economy, and on the other hand also focused on a common enemy. Germany was heading for war, but the Western nations, France, England, they said they really had this attitude like, no more. We've just gone through World War I. They were still licking their wounds. They were still suffering. They were feeling the aftermath of the First World War. So they made concession after concession. They threatened, but they never followed up with their threats. There was a period of weak diplomacy until, I would say, Churchill came to power. He was a stronger political figure. England had failed with their diplomacy. Churchill came to power, and that changed the course of direction of World War II. That was a very significant event. So that in this video we see the Anschluss, the period where Germany and Austria. We see that Germany started to build up the weapon industry that was against the Treaty of Versailles, but the Western nations let it slip. Then we saw the Anschluss that was against the treaty, that they let this slip. We saw the Sudeten Germans in Poland, they let that slip. But finally, when it was really too late, when they said, okay, there was no more ignoring what was going on, that was when Germany really invaded Poland, when the war started to ignite. Okay, so I think the rest is more about war history, which is interesting in itself, but not so much to understand European history. I believe that it's more interesting to look at. Okay, what was this war? Was it only about that? About an issue about how Was it really about the Jewish people and about the pride that was hurt but what was this war about? And looking more in general, the reason for wars is very often found in resources, or the lack of resources, or the access to resources.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course World History, and today we're going to talk about World War II. But we're not going to look at it as a battle between good and evil, but instead as a war for resources, particularly a war for food. Wait, Mr. Green, what about like Rosie the Riveter and Pearl Harbor and Nazis and Hitler? Yeah, I mean, from the past, if the question is, was Hitler evil, then yeah. But evil people generally can't, cause massive world wars on their own. So instead of talking about, the personality-driven model of history, I want to talk about resources, specifically my favorite resource, food. So the story of World War II is commonly told as a narrative of good versus evil, and it is, but we can also look at the Second World War through the lens of resource allocation, and I think if we do, it tells a story of both causes of the war and one of the ways that it impacted both soldiers and civilians. The presence or absence of food affected everyone involved in World War II. In the most stark terms, the absence of food led to the deaths, directly or indirectly, of at least 20 million people during those years, as compared to 19.5 million military deaths. Now, of course, both the Nazis and the Japanese were militaristic and expansionist in the 1930s, and they were both definitely motivated by nationalism, but they were also seeking something called autarky. You can remember this term by conjuring the feeling one gets near Thanksgiving. Oh, turkey. You can also remember when thinking about the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Ah, turkey. Anyway, autarky is a form of self-sufficiency in a world where increasingly people were reliant on world trade, and that made nations more and more dependent upon each other to meet basic needs. Both Germany and Japan lacked the resources within their borders that they needed to build their growing industrial states, and the resource that concerned them most was food. And this was a big part of what motivated their imperialist expansionism. Like, Hitler talked all the time about expanding German territory to acquire Lebensraum, or living space. But what this meant, of course, was agricultural land to feed Germans. That's what living space is really about on Earth. And most Germans at the time remembered the blockade during World War I, which had led to acute food shortages. For the Nazis, to quote Collingham, Lebensraum would make Germany truly self-sufficient and immune to blockade, and this would eventually enable Germany to challenge British and American hegemony. Meanwhile, in Japan, the need for food was also spurring imperial ambitions. If anything, Japan's limited space created a sense of crisis and made colonies seem necessary. Like Japanese colonies in Korea and Formosa, taken in the Sino-Japanese War of 1894 and 1895, provided 20% of the Japanese domestic rice crop by 1935. And then the Great Depression and Japan's growing population made the situation appear even worse, and probably led to the decision to annex Manchuria after 1931. So the Germans' plan was to open up Poland and eventually parts of Russia to German farmers. The Japanese plan was to resettle farmers in Manchuria to provide food for the homeland. So if the desire for more food was one of the initial causes of World War II, it also shaped the actual strategy of the war. This was especially true with one of the stupidest decisions of the war, Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union. A German agronomist named Hans Bach put forth something called the Hunger Plan, and in doing so convinced Hitler that in order to become self-sufficient, Germany had to invade the Soviet Union. And everyone knows that you cannot successfully invade Russia unless you are the Mongols. Anyway, the plan was that Ukraine and Western Russia would be transformed into a huge breadbasket that would feed both the German armies and German civilians. This was never fully implemented because, the Nazis could never successfully nail down all of the territory, but Collingham argues that it was a primary motive for Hitler's disastrous invasion of the USSR. And then on the Western Front, the so-called Battle of the Atlantic was largely about shipping arms, materiel, and food from the US to Britain. This was incredibly important in the opening years of World War II. Like Winston Churchill once said that the Battle of the Atlantic was the dominating factor all through the war. Never for one moment could we forget that everything happening elsewhere, on land, at sea, or in the air, depended ultimately on its outcome. In short, it was Britain's dependence upon other parts of the world that ultimately made it stronger than Germany's attempts at self-sufficiency. Starvation never became an issue for the Brits, but fear of running out of food, especially of running out of food for the troops, led to policies that made starvation a reality reality for many people in British colonies. In British Africa, for instance, colonial policy forcing production for the war instead of for domestic food consumption meant shortages that were only made worse by wartime inflation. Crop failure in Rhodesia in 1942 meant widespread hunger and famine. And in an echo of what happened at the end of the 19th century, World War II and British colonial policy spelled disaster for India. Japan had seized Burma in early 1942, cutting off 15% of Bengal's rice supply, and when harvest failed later that year, hunger turned to famine. Now, the British could have alleviated the suffering, but they were afraid to use supply ships that might be needed for the war effort to bring food to starving people in India. When you take into account hunger-associated diseases, between 1.5 and 3 million Indian civilians died, more than the total number of Indian combatants killed in World War I and World War II combined. In the United States, meanwhile, there was no starvation, but there was some rationing. And this was especially relative to most recent American wars. Some shared sacrifice. Americans gave up coffee and chocolate so that the troops could be well fed. So Americans and Britons hardly suffered from hunger. Neither did the Germans, actually, where memories of World War I made feeding the civilian population a top priority. Of course, millions of civilians weren't being fed because they were being murdered or worked to death in concentration camps. But in Britain, World War II might have actually improved people's diets. Now, Britons largely despised the wholemeal national loaf of bread, but it was much more nutritious than white bread, and its flour took up less cargo space. It's amazing to think that British people would dislike good food when there's so much of it in their country. Stan, this is the part where in the comments all the British people say, "We are not a country! We're 4 separate countries!" The Dig for Victory campaign encouraged ordinary people to plant gardens, and so they ate more vegetables. Full employment and higher wages meant that working class people also had access to more nutritious foods. Also, you know, they had the benefit of Canada growing like a gajillion acres of wheat. Although both the British and the Germans saw an overall reduction in caloric intake, it was nothing compared with what was happening in the USSR, Japan, and China. In Russia, daily caloric intake by the end of the war was half of what it had been in 1940. And I will remind you that things were not great in 1940 in Russia because Stalin. The daily caloric ration for Japanese women workers fell to 1,476 calories, which was bad, but in China, where the corrupt nationalist army was known to sell rice to the Japanese for profit, a famine in Guangdong claimed the lives of as many as 1.5 million peasants. And without doubt, much of the civilian suffering in the war was related to the massive amounts of food needed to keep soldiers fighting. Let's go to the thought bubble. In World War II, the US and Britain made a massive effort to make sure that their soldiers were well fed, and for the most part it paid off, even though the food that they got was sometimes pretty gross. The British World War I diet of biscuits and bully beef eventually gave way to the appetizingly named composite ration. American soldiers may have complained a lot about their infamous C and K rations, but they were the best fed soldiers in the world, receiving a whopping 4,758 calories per day, including meat at every meal because, you know, America. As you can probably guess, Soviet soldiers did not fare so well, especially when the Germans invaded, because it was their policy to live off the land, which meant scrounging as much food from the Russian countryside as they could. German troops weren't as well fed as the Americans or Brits, but they still managed to scarf down a respectable 4,000 calories per day. No combat soldiers were as consistently hungry, however, as the Japanese. Japanese soldiers were expected to feed themselves and were not provided with field kitchens. Often, this meant that Japanese soldiers were fueled by little more than rice. And as the war turned against them, it became more and more difficult for Japanese troops to feed themselves. On Guadalcanal, the Japanese attempted to resupply their troops with floating barrels dropped from passing ships, but by December 1942, between 120 and 130 soldiers were dying of starvation every day. The Japanese commander there estimated that while 5,000 of his soldiers died in combat, 15,000 starved to death. Overall, it's estimated that more than 1 million of the 1.74 million Japanese military deaths were caused by starvation or malnutrition. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So a quick look at the history section in your local bookstore or an IMDb search will tell you that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to tell the story of World War II. And this is just one history of the war, certainly not a definitive one. But examining the role of resources, especially food, in the Second World War tells a story that has at least one advantage over the narrative of the triumph of Allied good over Axis Axis evil, because it helps us to see that the war was not only about the soldiers fighting it. It gives us a window into the way the war affected everyone who lived at the time. It also allows us to see World War II from a global perspective in a way that focusing on strategy or tactics or pivotal battles doesn't. Like, very little fighting went on in sub-Saharan Africa or most of India, but these places were deeply affected by the war in ways that don't often make it into history books. Also, we live today in a thoroughly globalized world, but so did the people of the 1930s, and it's very interesting to see some of their responses to it. That hyper-nationalist idea that we can take care of ourselves and don't need help from outside as long as we annex a lot of territory that's currently outside of us, that idea is a response to globalization. But I think history shows us that it's a horrible response. It's a dangerous business when humans imagine others as less, when they think that their land needs to become our land so we can feed our people. And in that sense, at least, you can't separate ideology from resource allocation. And as long as we live in a world of finite resources, the potential for conflict will always be there. Knowing that, hopefully, will help us to avoid it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Crash Course is filmed here in the Chad and Stacy Emig.
He's talking about World War II because of food?
Really? The role of food. One of the reasons why, so is World War II, and I really subscribe to that. In itself, the war was a bunch of battles, but actually, why? I mean, what made Hitler invade Russia, which was a very stupid decision, actually, from a military point of view?
Why?
Well, one of the reasons was that one of his economic advisors wrote that actually Germany would not be able to feed themselves if they didn't expand into Russia. So Ukraine, Russia, Poland were envisioned to be the land that Germany need to feed itself. So they were fighting the British, and the British still had the Americans behind them, and so they didn't have any problem with supplies. Furthermore, the British also had colonies that they could rely on to get food, import food from. So Germany didn't have any colonies. They had an army to feed, and they felt after World War I, when they were hungry and soldiers were starving, that they needed to actually annex the eastern territories into their empire in order to feed themselves. And as you can see, there was some truth to it, because as we saw, the United States were very well fed. The British soldiers, there was never any hunger in Britain. There was hunger in other parts of the world. There was hunger in India, where 1.5 to 3 million people were estimated to have died because they didn't have enough food. They could have been supplied by the food that was grown in the Bengals or in we call it now Takashi's-san is very often there they always have flooding. No, the country, the Bengals, the East Pakistan. It's called Bangladesh. Yeah. Bangladesh was a food exporter to India, but the British Army refused to release their supplies to India to help the Indians who had a bad rice crop, because they thought they needed it for their soldiers, and as a result of that, 1.5 to 3 million Indians died because of the decision that Churchill made in World War I, and that's still one of the things that plays a role today. There's never been really apologized for by the British to the Indians. So that is something that is still lingering as a historic event that the British have not acknowledged to and apologized for to the Indians. So basically, this war and the role of resources also for Japan. They entered Korea, they entered Formosa, as they said, Taiwan, they went to Manchuria to actually feed their people. But Japan had a big problem, because different from the Americans, different from the Germans, they did not have enough food supplies. Actually, when I saw the numbers, it's estimated that more soldiers died of starvation than of actually gunfire. They were supposed to feed themselves, and there was not enough food to go around at that time. So that was also one of the reasons why Japan lost the war. So there was hunger in China, there was hunger in Russia, there was hunger in Japan, but the other countries were not hungry. Their soldiers were well fed, but there was also hunger in India. So this became a global conflict, and the reason why some of these seemingly stupid strategic decisions of Hitler to invade Russia at the time, and starting a two-front war at the east and at the west, which some people tend to explain as a show of his grotesque thinking and his lack of strategic skills, was actually not so stupid when you put it into the context of the vision that there existed of what was necessary in order to keep the empire alive, which was Lebensraum, which is space to live and space to grow food, because food is of very high strategic value, and looking at it from the perspective of the Germans, England, they could import food from the United States, from their colonies, from everywhere. They had the whole Atlantic at their disposal. So it was actually from that perspective that Germany decided to invade Russia as a logical move in order to win the war. But it was also the first step towards the end of World War II. So I thought it was a very good explanation as to why these wars happen, and why certain decisions were made. Give a bigger picture. I also want to show something about the war and their leaders.
Actually, Japan was a short of food.
Yes.
Right.
Very short of food. Let me see. Where was it? Here. This is about Japan.
Combat soldiers were as consistently hungry, however, as the Japanese. Japanese soldiers were expected to feed themselves and were not provided with field kitchens. Often, this meant that Japanese soldiers were fueled by little more than rice. And as the war turned against them, it became more and more difficult for Japanese troops to feed themselves. On Guadalcanal, the Japanese attempted to resupply their troops with floating barrels dropped from passing ships, but by December 1942, between 120 and 130 soldiers were dying of starvation every day. The Japanese commander there estimated that while 5,000 of his soldiers died in combat, 15,000 starved to death. Overall, it's estimated that more than 1 million of the 1.74 million Japanese military deaths were caused by starvation or malnutrition. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So a quick look at the history.
So the majority didn't die of gunfire, but of malnutrition. So when we were talking about, okay, why did Japan actually move into these territories like Southeast Asia, into Burma, into Indonesia? What could have been the role of resources?
Why they expanded?
Well, it was not easy to get the food from China, right?
Actually, Japan needed food.
Well, they needed food very bad. that more, if these numbers are correct, the numbers that that he gives here, then more people died of starvation and then we're talking about soldiers, not about civilians. Talking about soldiers, and we are also like that was also mentioned earlier in this video that the women working in the factories in Japan, they were on extremely tight rations, food rations. So they were also grossly underfed. Food played a very important role during
that was after World War II. Ration is not so strict under the World War II. And
what he says is that actually there were no field kitchens in the Japanese army.
Oh, this is the different issues there, especially Southern Island, and they embedded there, but all ships with food by submarine, American submarine. This is a major reason. That's the reason they didn't get any food and so many people dead. This is not this problem is procurement problem in Southern Island. Many people dead, Southern Island. But Asia Pacific area is no dead. No problem. And first of all, Japanese people are so poor instead of waging war, so they failed to wage war because compared with American soldiers, British soldiers life level is a tremendously big gap.
So it was said here that they lived the rations of the American soldiers were close to 5,000 calories a day.
Japanese maybe 1,500.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because this is Japanese people. Before starting the war, they are poor.
So
but they are crazy to invade into Asia Pacific. And as you may know or not, the Japanese soldiers invading into South Asia, Filipino, Indonesia, and Malay. They are so astonished because they are poorer than them. So how come Japanese soldiers won American soldiers, British soldiers? Unbelievable. They don't have bullet, they don't have food, but they won. But they don't know why. So that's the reason of those countries independent. They will win because of Japanese soldiers won. This is the reason. They are not starved. The reason is different. From the originally they are poor. You know, they go get down to by bicycle. Oh my goodness, by bicycle. And British soldiers surrendered. Why surrendered? Because they didn't know the enemy. Enemy is very poor, no bullet. But by bicycle coming down the south, they just give up 70,000 soldiers. Better than Japanese. They equipped better than Japanese people. Japanese soldiers, they no bullet, no food. And
but there were not much soldiers left here. I would reckon from the colonialist power, because they were fighting a war in Europe. I don't think that they were very much.
No, the British soldiers efforts in Singapore so rich compared with Japanese soldiers.
Yeah, but how many were there?
70,000.
70,000 soldiers in Singapore, British.
Yeah, British, 70,000 soldiers. Japanese less than that. And Japanese, Singaporean, Malaysian, they are unbelievable. They saw Japanese soldiers. Clothes are so poor, food is so poor, nothing different from them. And barracks is so terrible, and less than the local people. But this is a way of life. And it's ridiculous. Even still, though Japanese military invaded South Asia, unbelievable. So still, Westerners they cannot believe it. But this is actually so poor. They are looking for food. No. Back to the basics. They are poor. Okay. So
they needed to feed themselves, but really they did not have any kitchens to travel with them with the troops.
They don't need it. They don't have food. You know, like a British people. Okay, I tell you, American soldiers, British soldiers. Okay, we're going to have lunch. We're going to have dinner. Japanese soldiers, no, we don't. You take it somewhere. The food you steal from somewhere.
So yeah, the only way that they can feed them is just by stealing.
No, the reason is they don't have a power to transport, deliver food because of poor. Okay, because of poor. They are not looking for the food to go outside. Originally, they are poor.
Right, but they need to eat, right? No matter how, you need to have your calorie intake.
It's stupid. Just Japanese headquarters, crazy people occupy the headquarters of Japanese government, soldiers. They are so stupid. They try to go outside without food, just invade the enemies, take food from them. Oh, stupid. 100% for sure, stupid. Because soldiers so poor. And they don't send bullets, so no bullet, no food. But you should go ahead with Japanese spirit, stand on the beach, So everybody spread all over Asia. And this life level is the same as local people. Right? This is a true story. But British soldiers, American soldiers, so rich.
So they were getting their, like for example, the Kuomintang was selling food to the Japanese army. It said here.
No, not selling food to Japanese people. Who was selling?
The Kuomintang.
Who?
The nationalist army in China.
Steal it.
Well, also, of course, it was not like a...
everything steal. No, they just the headquarters ordered them to. He is wrong. Steal everything. Okay, Manchuria is different. No military, just a country. And police there. The food is a lot, and the population is so few, so no problem. But invaded area is so poor. Steal everything. Just Japan headquarters ordered them to get food locally. That called problem. Kill them all. Steal food. It means farmers against them, right? It means kill them. So after World War II.
But that was not a concerted effort. So how did that happen? Was it just soldiers going out for themselves looking for food, or was it like the whole platoon with people? They would just go to a farm and persuade them to give, and if they didn't give, they would kill them.
No, kill them. No persuasion.
But was it like an organized effort, or would they basically say after 6 o'clock in the evening, find yourself food, and everybody would go out?
No. Chinese people, they recognize, and about 60 million, 90 million escaped to West. Okay, and discard everything, escaped to West before Japanese soldiers invasion. And Japanese soldiers going south, north to south, right? And most farmers escaped, but few still sticking to the land. All those are killed. Steal them all. But after World War II, Mao Zedong concealed it, cover up those facts because of he tried to make good friendship with Japanese people after World War II. So he just neglected only Nanjing. This is a true story, which I am recognizing. Right? They killed them all. Okay, men, the farmers.
What was the role of the Japanese army in the fight between the Kuomintang and Mao Zedong?
Oh, this is Kuomintang is occupied China, Mao Zedong western area. Okay, western northern area. They separated the areas.
But there was a conflict between them, and Mao Zedong was looking for the hegemony in China, right?
Two parties in China. Okay, one is Mao Zedong, one is Chiang Kai-shek.
Right, but they were opposing parties.
Of course, this is a.
So how did the invasion of Japan tip the balance in favor of Mao Zedong?
No favor. It's a separate join. Japan soldier, Mao Zedong, Kuomintang. 3 parties there. It's a
so there was no collaboration between Mao Zedong and Japanese army?
Yes, was, but commingling.
So it was opportunity driven.
Okay, this their Japanese soldiers is invasion is because of not food, because of this is a big question. This imperialism. How come they invaded China? If you're going to sell land and calmly thinking about that, this is stupid. This is 100% stupid.
So, but I mean,
like a waging war in the United States is stupid. Waging war in mainland China is stupid. considerable size of a country.
But I think the reason why Hitler started war with Russia was stupid, but also understandable.
Why?
Because basically they believed at that time that if you look at your enemy, if you look at the position of England, United States, Canada, it was almost impossible for Germany to compete with the resources that were available to England, because they had the Atlantic Ocean at their disposal, they had the colonies at their disposal. So looking at your enemy, Germany really thought, okay, if we don't do anything about growing our food supply, securing our food supply, then we cannot fight them.
But they occupied Europe, right? How come they shortage of food?
Well, they could not expect a lot of food from the Netherlands, for example. We were dirt poor at the time. There was also hunger in the Netherlands. There was in Belgium, was the same story. France maybe could have been, but for the bigger picture was really the idea of Lebensraum was to actually annex Poland, to annex Russia and Ukraine, to create food, to a stable food supply for the German empire.
But this is stupid because Russia is very strong power at that time.
Right, but okay, sure, but that is looking back, right? But now you have to imagine yourself that you're Hitler and you're looking forward, and the theory of the time, your advisor is telling you, look at England, look at their position, look at their colonies, look at the Americans, look at the Canadians that were supplying the English. If you don't do anything, if you don't start to think about and concern about how to build up a stable food supply for the entire empire, you will not be able to win this war. And they were looking at a 1,000-year empire, just like the Roman Empire, the East Roman Empire. That was the objective of the Germans. That was their idea. The third, it's called the Third Reich. Das Dritte Reich, that literally means the Third Empire. After the Greeks, after the Roman Empire, they wanted to build the German Empire. That was their big idea. So it may have been stupid because it was focusing on something else. It was focusing on the long term. We just need to win Russia, so let our soldiers do it. They are better equipped. They are well fed than the Russians, better fed than the Russians, and we just need to do it. Otherwise, you cannot win this war. Therefore, we need to take a leap of faith and invade Russia. That's I think what it was. It was a rational decision, not an irrational decision. It was just okay, having to choose between two evils. I'm sure that Hitler was not convinced that they could beat Russia. But I really feel that he's building a very good case, that Hitler probably thought that if he didn't do it, he could not be able, Germany could not be able to establish that Third Reich. And you have to remember, he had success from the early 1930s. From nowhere, he built up the party. He got political power. He ignited the economy. He invaded West Europe. So he had been success after success. So gradually he started to believe that he was invincible. Whatever he touched turned into gold. So why wouldn't he be able to actually beat the Russians, who were underfed, ill-motivated, as to the German soldiers have proven to be very strong and very capable.
Why they invaded North Africa?
Why? So Rommel, they had this harmonica war. My guess, this is my guess, but this was a way to cut off supplies to from the colonies back into Europe. So there were supplies coming from Africa and via the Middle East back into Europe. So I think they were trying to isolate the Mediterranean, control the Mediterranean.
They fight it against. Is the French colony or sort of countries?
No, they didn't go that far. They only in the desert. So the coastline of the.
For example, Alger is French colony.
Right.
So they invaded Algeria.
But Algeria, no. Algeria was controlled by Vichy France, so they didn't have to invade Algeria. But like Egypt and
Egypt
and Gaddafi's country, Libya. So
why they invaded?
I think that actually they tried to drive a wedge between the colonies and the West, so that they could control the Mediterranean and make sure that they actually could control England, because they were really literally surrounded. So they were surrounded in the east by Soviet Union, and then south there was the influx of resources from the colonies that was helping the British. So looking from that perspective, the chances that Germany had once they started this war, they were strong, but they were kind of overstretching their.
I think it's the same every in the world. Okay, the war, regional war, is very strange for me. Like invading Russia, invading North Africa, Japan is expanding territory to Pacific Ocean and Southeast Asia. This is very strange. How come they try to only satisfy within the Manchuria instead of invading China? And did they believe they will win? I don't think so. But
well, I must say that I completely agree. What on earth were they thinking?
Now is for example China. Okay, China occupies the Asian Southeast Asian war, Southeast Asia, Southeast Sea, Northeast Sea, and Southeast East Sea. They try to occupy. How come they try to occupy the Southeast Sea?
But could it have been? I mean, this is just I just throw it in there, and I didn't really think this through. But could it have been that basically after when the Meiji era started, Japan really was desperate, trying to get out of this age of isolation, and really wanted to play a role in the world, no matter what. And looking from that perspective,
that is just only imitate European colonialism. So they imitated Taiwan, Chosen.
For some, yeah.
Just only imitation.
Right.
And they try to sell they are strong, right? It's sort of a lie. Japan at that time, Japanese are not strong, like North Korea. Put the money on the gunship, put money on the weaponry, and people are poor. So kind of, they had looks big. Try to sell their looks big.
Right.
This is right, but they try to.
It's like a Hollywood movie scene.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's just like there's not real buildings. They're just
exactly current North Korea. Exactly. So they try to look big, and so those people thinking that it is unbelievable. But Japanese war is sort of stance they did. It was so crazy, and how the population they believe in government because government told the lie told the lie every lie. Still now Japanese people believes report from national government broadcast. They believe those news from top to bottom. But those people, okay, some all knowledge, all information, but pick one of those. This is not lie, but pick one of those. This is actually the same as lie. Right? This is happening.
Well, this is where actually this is going to fit right into our discussion about philosophy. I think that will play a major role, the differences in philosophy.
This is a current United States fake news is the same. Picking, picking news. This looks like a true, but this is true, but in totally this is a lie. The same thing happened before war, and the military and Hitler told a lie to their population, so they believed it. Usually, population decides what civilian they will going to decide where to go, but many cases they told a lie. They don't understand what the fact is, so they follow the government.
Right. Well, basically, I mean, in case of Germany, I think that they really fed into they felt the emotions of the people. They felt the frustration, the hunger, the humiliation, and they gave them a sense of pride. Like they did sell the war on an emotional level. They gave people uniforms, and they gave them like beautiful parades, and they shouted, and they stood up for themselves, and they in defiance of the Western nations, and they made a success for themselves. So they gave them, out of that period of humiliation and feeling defeated, they gave them this new sense of pride, and that it's really just the narrative, the story, the way that it was sold. I will show you a video later of a speech of Adolf Hitler that was very successful, that mobilized the emotions, because of course it was stupid to think that Germany could get away with it, to build a 1,000-year empire.
At that time, those ordinary people are irritating, frustrated, and the current pressure from the rest of European countries,
right.
They pay much more money, and also they are very heavily restricted.
Right, and basically it was not fair, because as we looked at World War I before, Germany was more or less pulled into this whole affair by Austria-Hungary. It was not really Germany that wanted to do this. Their objective was more or less to stabilize the situation between Austria and Serbia.
Yeah. Like Japan is the same situation, and if they same situation. But I wanted to say current America is similar to the Hitler's era, because ordinary people in the past 10 years, from middle class to lower class, right?
Frustration.
Frustration.
They were the backbone of the American society. It was the American workers that played a prominent role in politics, in the economic. They were the economic gravity point of the United States. Everything was riding on the success of American industries, but that's no longer the point.
How do you know the 1% of total asset occupied by 99 GDP money? 1%, people occupy 99% of the American asset, and 1% people live in the rest of the asset. So they are almost few middle class. Almost all people are poverty. So in the past 10 years, they get into the kind of situation caused by Obama. Because Obama is...
it's not caused by... Well,
he himself is a good person, but do you know how much money he got from his election? 600 million. It's double of Hillary Clinton. 600 million US dollars for election. It means many people donate him, contributed, so he needs to support big company. Actually, he supports big company, not poor people.
But I I'm a fan of Obama, and so I.
600 million US dollars.
It's a lot, but Obama basically inherited the policies of American Republican presidents who have been starting wars, and after 9/11 completely followed a failed economic policy. That
I don't support Bush, but Obama is actually, he supported rich people. Because the reason is simple. He is a black person, he got a lot of money from big company. He willingly, unwillingly, he needs to support rich people, oligarchy people. oligarchy. Very few families, 400 families, he needs to support them because they paid money for him, right? Actually, you can see you can see the statistics. Past 10 years, just these people, middle class people disappeared, but also past 10 years is healthcare cost is steeping up.
But what was the okay? The healthcare I don't think is fair, because what were the two major points of Obama period, or getting the troops out of all these wars that were started by Bush in the Middle East, etc.
I agree with that, but
that is one thing, and the other one was implementing Obamacare, and which is not something to do to actually give back to the people who supported his campaign. Now, Obamacare failed mainly because of the Senate, because of Congress, because of those very opportunistic, and actually we should focus on the role of Congress in the United States. Because they are bitches.
Why failed?
Because they blocked everything, because Obama couldn't get a majority.
No, my question is what they blocked?
Every legislation, everything that they tried to implement, Congress has been opposing it and delaying it.
My question is, why Obamacare failed? Not only Congress, but what is the true reason? Do you know?
I think Congress, and I think because a minority of very highly vested interests were lobbying against this. The majority of people, I think, were in favor of this, or should have been in favor of this.
No. True reason is past 30 years, okay? Healthcare cost 8 times increased. 30 years. 8 times increased. And while past 30 years, GDP is not more than 200%. And wages, just only the 30% increase, or 20% increase past 30 years. But healthcare cost 8 times. It means what happened? Because pharmaceutical company and also the just doctors, nurses, and medical related companies, get so rich and so protected. Obama could not touch anything at all. It means high cost for the medical. For example, Japanese doctor is 10,000 a year, but American doctors more than 30,000. 10,000, 100,000 a year, Japanese doctor. But American doctor average 300,000. It's 3 times, 4 times, 5 times higher than Japanese. It means total cost is 3 times, 5 times. How could they balance for the healthcare? So they need to touch for those areas. This is untouchable. Pharmaceutical, medical company, medical cost. Okay, why you should not going down to 1/10? He couldn't because he got a lot of money donated, contributed by pharmaceutical company or medical company.
You think?
This is the reason why Obamacare failed. Oh, okay, just GDP percent.
You think because he
percent? Yeah, GDP percent. How much they're going to pay is America is 15%. Dutch is less than 10%. Japan the same. Otherwise, they cannot survive. That's the reason why their GDP is so critical, paying Obamacare, because they couldn't touch in the more focal point. They try to give them pressure for the rich people, rich company, big company. They couldn't do that. Bank, medical company, insurance company, any company, they couldn't touch it. He couldn't touch it. Actually, he got a 600 million money from those company. He couldn't touch it. Right? This is a fail. And Trump said, okay, more small money and big profit, big supply for the health care for the people. He said, but what he's talking true, okay? Less money, it's true. But it's a misfortune is, unfortunately, Trump cannot read more than 3 lines, not 1 page. He cannot, but Obamacare is 100 pages.
So he said famously, nobody knew that healthcare was so difficult.
So he doesn't. But point is clear. Trump beat medical company. Trump beat, pharmaceutical company. Trump beat wages of doctors. Cut it half. He should say, then we're going to be solved, even if Obamacare.
So his plan is to cut the medical expenses, not to
organize the institution. So he not misjudge. He does not understand the true problem of Obamacare. Okay, I understand. If that point somebody advised him, and he's switching to Harley Davidson to Monsanto medical company or some other pharmaceutical company, okay, to beat them. Okay, you need to your balance sheet is something strange. You need to discard this money. You need to distribute this money to more people, more healthcare, right? So if he doing that, Obamacare, the Trump care will survive. This is it. That America is many people frustrated, so they just express authoritarian populist, and Trump won. Okay, the same situation happened before World War II, Hitler, before World War II, Japanese, in the current America. It's because ordinary people frustrating, irritating, this kind of things happen.
The same was true in Japan?
No, Japan different. Japan is this is this is the reason why I have a presentation of Japanese democracy tomorrow. To our presentation, I surveyed in the first book, My Democracy.
For whom? To whom? To whom are you giving a presentation?
This university, some sort of university, and then Japanese. Okay, and then I restarted again. Then I recognize that Japanese is most best democracy in the world. I recognize. Okay, compared with America, terribly American, but Japan is so beautiful, and Japan is very strange company. Why strange? I saw that for several days. How come Japan is so nice, so best democracy? Japan is. I study. Okay, reason is Confucianism. Heavy Confucianism. I just book I gave you. Heavy Confucianism. Okay, just you should do the right things instead of getting money. Kind of sort of culture they have.
Is that the culture of the politicians or of the electorate?
No. This is basic fundamentals. Not politicians, everybody. Just giving them education, kind of education. And also before World War II, we have more strict. But after World War II, American government, War Guild information program is try to scratch Japanese virtue, like moral virtue. But still they have fundamental they have. This is the background they have. But this is, okay, if you just forget your purse at the station, somebody to bring it to police office. This is nothing happening in the rest of the world.
No.
Japan is everybody on the, if you lost everything, but return to the original owner. This is strange people.
But would you say? Well, I'm still a little bit puzzled that you say that Japan has the best democracy in the world.
Okay, one pitfall they have. American military drop atomic bomb, right? Japanese people never criticized the United States. None of those never criticized America. This is strange. Why strange? Japanese people easy to change their sword based upon some sort of kind drastically revolutionary issues happen. Okay, Meiji Restoration and after World War II, two chance Japanese people 180% degree change, and Japanese is that sort of very strange people they have, but still I don't know who are they, right?
So that's very
like America. American people is very kind of every people frustrating because 0.1% people are tremendously rich. 99.9% is average people or poor people. Majority is poor people. But Japan is no rich people. Everybody is average. Of course, some people is certain level rich, but that's only they got only the 10 million or 20 million US dollars. That's it. But not 100 million, not 1 billion. And almost Japanese people, everybody, average people, and poor, fairly poor, very good, middle side. So they are not frustrating. They can survive. If you go to work, like if you try to find a job, they can survive, right? And everybody limited information. They don't know what happening global level, and they don't know that. So they are happy. and one village, and common culture, and they don't need to doubt. Why not doubt? Because not like China, not like American. No many races, not many different kind of people, just very average people everywhere. So you everybody easy to believe each other. No problem at all to miscommunication. Normally. But America, China is different. But Japan is everybody average. So even if, but average salary compared with Singapore, America, rich countries very poor. But still they don't feel they are poor. House is very small. Their food is not good rather than America. America is much better. No. If you go to the Los Angeles supermarket, price is 2/3, half of Japanese food price.
Yeah, but the quality of Japanese food is
no. If you go into any kind of food, tomato and everything, and mayonnaise and everything is half price, better than Japan. And milk is 1/3.
Milk. The milk is kind of like.
What I'm talking is what I'm talking about is that Japanese food price is very high, housing is very high, and
the quality is also high. Quality is also high.
Oh, but and also a lot of entertainment, but Japanese salary is not high.
No.
So it means, but still Japanese are not frustrating. Not frustrating. This is the point. How come? I thought that. Oh, because Japan, spirit of Japan, Japanese spirit. This is very strange people. Why is the spirit? Because only I told you, only 2,000 years. Only Japan has emperor for 2,000 years. Only Japan, one emperor all the way around, all the way down bottom of now. This is strange, don't you think so? Any kind of country, nothing in the world. It means Japan has 2,000 years tradition. No change. Strong.
But China is, well.
No, they every time they're changing. 100 years, 200 years, changing 10 times.
But it's also a homogeneous country. Of course, it's.
No, diversified.
It's but more or less.
If Chinese sitting beside me, I can't believe him. Okay, this is who you are. It's too much risky to talk with you. Sit beside me.
Right.
But Japanese is no problem. Sit beside you. Where do you come from? Any place. This is a friend. Okay. So this is Japanese people. The 2,000 history. What this means? This tradition means. What is this? Do you know why? What is this?
Trust.
Okay. This is dignity. Japanese has dignity. 2,000 years confident. Okay. They never change pole. Okay. One straight 2,000 years pole. They never change in the history. Nothing happened in the world. One country and no invasion. So they have dignity. They have pride. This is they sustain their politics. That's the reason why they sustain everything else. Culture. This is strong one. That's the reason why they're very strong. But suddenly, some case something happened. They 100% change their mind. But I don't know why. After World War II, this is one phenomenon there. They change everything. They slow down everything, getting new American democracy. On Meiji Restoration, they slow at Confucianism, bring in the European idea, materialization. Mentality, forget it. Now materialization. This is Meiji Restoration. I don't know how come they change their mind. But Japanese is kind of strange culture they have. But this is future. I don't know why they changed it. Okay, before World War II, every rich family.
But how come everybody is because what you say that makes sense. So they never changed. The emperor is like the factor. But how come that they can so easily, seemingly easily overthrow and not with people who want to hold on and people who basically everybody changes, and then after World War II everybody changes. There is no discourse. There's no debate. Is that the point? Why are there not people who say, well, I'm at this side, I'm at that side? No, everybody is moving to that direction. It doesn't really matter whether you're.
If one thing I can understand about message is Confucianism. Confucianism is a very strict teaching. What is teaching? You should follow your boss. A boss is a government leader. Boss is a group, large family of the father, and both of your company is president. Japanese very strict, pressure for several hundred years. They need to follow on those people and the top people. Top people change, you should change. No opinion, okay, no compromise, and 100% abide by obedience.
So that's why the U.S. wanted to change Japan, of course, because they know that if the boss changes, everybody will change. Therefore, they wanted to have a democratic system. But the democratic
difference
system
is obvious.
Doesn't fulfill, because if Japan changes, they will change again.
Oh no! Japanese is Confucianism is tradition. They never nothing changed 2,500 years. Confucianism, okay, material, 2,500 years. Nothing changed, and that is hierarchical obedience order come down from 2,500 to
okay, but okay, so that didn't change. But like, for example, we had the Meiji era that completely changed Japan.
Discarded.
So it completely
they discarded the Confucianism, but they still mindset. Okay, also just emperor's message they had. Emperor's message is what the message is. You should obey your boss. This is strictly every morning. Every student, elementary school, everybody at the school in the morning, they try to chant the message. We should follow on the emperor. We should follow on the president. We should follow on the government organization.
So, but can you imagine that was very scary for the Americans when they were fighting the Japanese, because basically the bosses told them to go to war, and they did, and they even followed them till death. Without surrendering, fighting themselves to death.
You're talking about Japanese?
Yeah.
Oh, because Japanese, this is that was the education. And follow on both. Now is they defeated. The American military said, oh, your boss is going to change. So you need to follow on me, Makasa said. And emperor follow me. Then Japanese people follow him. And Japanese people is strictly educated. Follow everything. Yes, follow everything what you say. This is the American military show the one big screen. Okay, this is our message. Non-dismilitarization, and the government should be like this, and the company should be like this, and also you can enjoy your sex, you enjoy your sports, you enjoy something like that. They prepared map. Then you should do this, and they did it. This is Japanese culture. This is very good to organize a new government.
But it's very scary too, because if a new leader stands up...
if you're going to study the Confucianism, you should follow everything, whatever. Okay, just I tell you, for example, basic Confucianism, basic.
But it's very scary, don't you think? I think it's scary.
Okay, this is basically 2,500 years ago, they taught you, you should cultivate yourself. And then you ask me, what is cultivate myself? Okay, for cultivate yourself is basic. Fundamentally, you need to follow your wife. Follow my wife? Yes. You should listen what she said.
And
then you try to listen everything. Wife is terrible animal, okay, in the world, created for men, against men, created for men, terrible animal. You follow her, then you're going to be patient. Patient means cultivate yourself. This is a Confucius.
So I read your book. So
then what? Then 2,500 years ago, people, if you can do that, you can govern your country, right? So this is the same thing. Japanese people, everybody studied that before World War II. Now is Makasa came. Okay, I'm a boss now. You should follow me. Whatever I said. Japanese people is custom to follow him. Custom. Oh, we change this, change this. Yes, everything you change. This is what he did. He success. The Japanese is very easy to control. That's the reason why Edo era Tokugawa Ieyasu adopted Confucianism. How to govern. You should follow what I said. This is the Tokugawa Ieyasu. What he said, what he intending to actually. This is Confucianism.
So that doesn't allow for critical thinking. That doesn't allow for criticism. That doesn't allow for anything.
Education is no question, no opinion. Just listen to what I said as teacher teacher's policy, right? So Japanese educational system, no question, no against, no dispute, no debate.
So that results in complications when negotiating outside of
No
Japan.
negotiation, just listen to me. Japanese business is like that. But Japanese have failed in the world because they are going outside Japan. They don't believe anybody. So they try to pushing hard. So the rest of the world people hate Japanese. It's crazy guy. Why he's pushing me for so hard? But within Japan, they are very calm, very serene. But outside Japan, they get wild because they cannot believe the outside people. Simple. Okay, I'm going to turn back to Trump. Okay, Trump is what currently he is doing is whether you might acknowledge or not, but he tried to make a scratch out global order, world order, eliminate every world order like NAFTA, TPP, and climate change. Everything.
Impact America first.
No, not America first. In his mind, okay, he tried to scratch out everything. He is kind of global revolutionist. Okay, his mind is okay. His mind, vision, I like it. But his character, I hate him. But his vision is super. What is his? He is talent, intellectually. Intellectually, he understands. Current system is so old. America, including America deficit, okay, they cannot sustain their country anymore if the current situation are going. And China stealing intellectual property, Japanese get rich more money from America, Mexico get lot of money from America, because current world order is wrong. Okay, I understand that. What's his intention? Okay, intellectually here I recognize. This is not bad, okay? But problem is, after scratching NAFTA, after scratching TPP, after scratching climate change, what happened? It's terrible. What he didn't think about that after that. Okay, but like Syria, bombing, scratch out everything. Oh, then after that, no, we get together to thinking about what we're going to do. This is what he's thinking. Do you know that actually his idea is I like him. But
the problem is not that. The problem is
okay. I just one example. Why he negate climate change? This reason simple. This is oxygen. Hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is how to eliminate the hydrocarbon. He said bullshit. Why? This is a middle-aged woman is get together. Lot of people get together. Just kind of ODA and non-government organization. People get together. There are a lot of discussion. He thought, oh, this is stupid. Eliminate everything. How to environment issue? We need to think it again, over again, or forget it in the past. This is his idea. Okay, this is NAFTA is Mexico get a lot of money because of you just the American motor company moving factories.
Mexico didn't get so much money. There were a lot of American manufacturers who got a lot of money.
No. Mexico is get hired a lot of employees.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, this is
they created employment in Mexico.
Employment. But he said, okay.
But Mexico didn't get rich because of that. American industrialists got rich because of NAFTA.
But now he decided, okay, we forgot NAFTA. What benefit do we get? No benefit.
Well, of course, they did get benefit. I mean, I think the whole problem is that America wanted to...
I tell you, no problem. To tell me what you...
Okay, so basically, I think the problem is that American industries were no longer competitive. In order to keep that consumption going, they needed to basically outsource their production to outside of their own home country, so that they still could make the money and still could make the product at a lower cost and basically keep on consuming. And they went too far. I mean, basically their turning point was reached already 20-30 years ago, but they wanted to keep growing and keep on consuming. Now everybody is sitting on a huge credit card debt. They are uncompetitive. They don't know what to do anymore, and now they're blaming outside the country.
He's going to tell you. I 100% I accept you. Okay, That's the reason I wanted to scratch out everything. Okay? And GM, GE, every company, Boeing, let me try to scratch it out. You need to going to start fair competition. That this is his message.
You need to. Well, they will never survive if he does that. If he thinks that he can get away with it.
Anyway, he can scratch out everything. Otherwise, American economy cannot be survived. He understands that. If they're going to get more rich, ordinary people, he hate.
But the only way that
he hate 0.1% rich people. Get rid of those people, right? He don't like it. And American ordinary people get more revived middle income people, and it means his problem is so deep layers, not easy, not simple, and domestic issues so big. So he wanted to change everything else. That is his intention. If so, I agree with him, because usually we need revolution. But they cannot make revolution. So he tried to do it by himself. American motorcycle company, they don't have power to sell because of technology, because of quality.
It's inferior.
He knows that. So how to revive this kind of American, more prosperity? He need to change American spirit.
But if he's going to bring it back, if he's going to keep American motorcycles, the only way that he can do it is by introducing tariffs for more competitive products and protect that Harley Davidson from.
It's impossible. Harley Davidson keep their quality, keep their status, their position, right?
So what will happen is that basically, if he wants to bring those companies back, if he wants to bring Apple manufacturing back to the States, bring the Harley Davidson there, bring jobs back from Mexico, manufacturing jobs back from Mexico into the United States, then basically the only way that he can protect those industries is by raising import duties on German cars, on Japanese cars, on foreign electronics, on everything. So that will mean basically that the United States is kind of retreating. They're still servicing their home market. Products will become more expensive. I don't know whether this is.
One he's sold is for automobile. Okay, one he's sold. He's beating German car. Okay, if you want to sell the car in the States, why don't you make a German factory in the States? Japan is still exporting car to the States. Why not expand your factory in the States?
Well, we're already doing that, of course.
No, not more than that. Like a Canadian car exporting 1 million cars to the States. Why not you going to make a factory 1 million cars in the States? Canada is no factory there. Okay, so this is every car factory in the States. Then you compare with American cars and German cars.
But the response will be, the rest of the world will say say the same to the United States. Though, if they want to do that, that means that we will create a kind of autarky in every little country. That means duplicating efforts. It will be disastrous for the world economy if we're going to do that.
This is a worldwide competition. It's just a trade war. He tried to calm it down within 6 months. If this kind of trade war continue more than 6 months, American get weak and China get weak. Everybody don't want to do that.
Europe will hate it.
Especially China is big power. Xi Jinping never don't want to do that. They need to compromise each other. Trump understand if his factory move into the States, 6 months. Otherwise, Harley Davidson cannot survive in the States. It's obvious, right? They can pay 20%, 30% duty. So this is obvious. But he wanted to do is revolution, climate revolution, everything. Climate revolution very understandable. Actually, COP16, 17 organization conferences, many middle-aged women get together and complaining climate problem. But I'm talking about light, I don't think so. Many people just noise. So he wanted to clearing everything. Okay, we need to seriously consider the climate change. what is wrong, what is the best way. Not like George Bush. He understands, and EPA will going to thinking about what the future is supposed to be. Recently, EPA had resigned yesterday, but they're going to change what is real environmental protection is supposed to be. Current organization is so many people involved in, and what kind of result is so much compromise. Is he want to discuss NAFTA same, TPP everything the same. They try to base upon traditional conservative idea. They don't want to change the world order. They try to sustain world order, but America believes this is not for them, good for them. So those world order, I wanted to scratch it out. Zero waste we need to consider. So we want to do in business more fair. Instead of current business is not fair, he believes. But that expression is not the truth. His expression is he want to rebuild world order. You discard traditional thinking. We want to discard his old-fashioned idea. We try to consider more creative mind. But he tried to do is global level, too much impact to everybody. They cannot follow on what he said. And he also has bad point. Judiciary just only for him, not the country. He's stupid. He tried to escape from Russian secret election procedure. He was wrong, but he tried to conceal it. You try to use judiciary. That is wrong. But his basic vision is I understand, is revolution. But he himself, American power is so strong. He can attain a certain level of revolution already done. China open market. China restricted insurance, everything, ticket, air flight, everything, but he just tried to eliminate some of those. American company can now make investment for those companies or industry. But Trump pushing more. You try to open your market. This is true. Actually, China opened. But beforehand, China never opened anything at all. But now he tried to change mind. So pushing so hard is something change.
So, okay.
The other thing is like North Korea, nuclear power, bullshit. Just eliminate it. Okay, he success. But now is what one more point is in the world is a stupid thing happening. This is Israel. Israel. Everybody believe Israel is American. Trump support Israel and American for many years support Israel. No. American rich people is Jews. So those people support Israel in the past 70 years history. But Trump, in his mind, he don't believe it. Okay, even Kushner is Jews, but he don't believe it. He tried to make a Palestine country. Okay, he want to make.
How do you see any?
Oh, it's just easy. He's Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Then I understand what this means is.
Yeah, but it's the American embassy to Israel that is moving.
Yeah, this is a big change. The reason why he tried to cause wages of terrorism. Who are they? Is Hamas. Hamas. Not Al-Fada, Antifada. First, second, now third Antifada. Then he wanted to kill top of Hamas people. He did kill top of Hamas people, and Fatah is very moderate party. Even only moderate party, and also eliminate Netanyahu. American government planning to kick Netanyahu out from Israel, and started. And actually, Netanyahu sued by bribe.
I think it's a very, 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 very interesting theory, and I think I would actually be happy if it would play out that way.
And this year or early next year, before the Trump resigned.
But why do you think that is really his grand scheme? How do you get your that he's really thinking that far?
I'm reading a lot of materials. This is liberal arts. I know everything what I said is fact. So fact and combined several fact in the result is he want to get another Nobel laureate, peace laureate next year. North Korea and Palestine.
So you are well. I think the theory is super interesting. So I was under the complete impression that, and maybe this is also the way that we want to see the world, as simple as black and white. So I was under the completely impression, and I am under the impression that he just did it to appease the Israelis and say, well, what the hell we are doing in Tel Aviv? We the capital of Israel should be Jerusalem, Dakara.
He don't like Netanyahu.
Nobody likes Netanyahu.
Too much right wing, and take him out from Israel.
Nobody likes Netanyahu.
Take out him, and he using CIA, and he just Netanyahu. He's just actually sued, and fraud and bribe, and wife already arrested. Time 6 months before Trump resigned. Then Netanyahu disappeared. He's the most right wing, and more mild person get prime minister. Then just West Bank will going to be compromised by Palestinian people, and Fatah will agree with new prime minister of Israel, then independent.
But what if okay? So this whole move of the embassy, just focusing on that will create a reaction from Hamas to Israel or to the United States? To the United States, right?
Okay, West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. West Jerusalem is capital of Israel. That's all. And Hamas will disappear. Maybe Trump tried to kill 100 people of Hamas top people. Then problem is solved.
Do you think that's possible? Because Hamas has a lot of public support.
Okay, Syria had they shoot 30 missiles, but he tried planning to shoot missile 1,000. Same as killing ISIL. Disappear. They live in 2 million population. They just target only 100 people. Without eliminating Hamas, Palestine never can be independent. Everything against.
I agree.
So this is Trump. Only Trump can do it. Any other president cannot do it. Any other country cannot do that. Trump can do it. So I just guess it. So he want to get peace Nobel Prize. Two. North Korea and Palestine. he got more than 40% favorable vote from the American people.
So basically, what you're saying is that everything that doesn't work should be stopped. Don't try to fix it, just stop it. NAFTA no longer works for the average American. It only works for
scratch it, not stop. Scratch it.
So it works for the owners of the factories, the rich 1% of the United States. They benefit from NAFTA.
No, he's exactly.
Right.
He is thinking about his plan is big plan. What big plan is? He tried to eliminate American rich people, 0.1% population rich people. How to eliminate those people, right? He want to eliminate, and he just tried to do the same action for Canada. Do you know Canada? What country? American Canada is what kind of borderline?
Yeah, that's kind of open,
right?
Yeah.
So Trump said, Trudeau, you country steal my leather shoes, American leather shoes to Canada. He complained. This is a joke because they have 8,800 kilometers borderline. Borderline, many houses is crossing border. 4 airport is crossing border. It means how do you going to control the border? Not like Mexico. You're going to make a wall. It's impossible. It means if you're going to charge tariff, everything else, truck is freely going to pass through the border. It's nothing. I call you, Trudeau. You complain a lot, but don't get serious. You know? We have 8,800 borders. Don't worry. That's what he said. You don't worry. Your country stealing shoes from the United States of America to Canada. It means not shoes, everything, right? Everything. Not must be take serious, but Trudeau is Freeland is also the.
But what is that about those shoes? Because I don't know the example, but
everything, every trailer, trucks, oil tanker, everything, freely going back and forth, no problem.
Right, but why? How is that stealing?
How is the stealing? Crossing border, no border guard.
All right, is that stealing?
Yeah, stealing. Actually, now we're going to charge 20% of tax, but they don't need to pay because truck is back and forth, no border control. 800.
We're stealing tax, import duties.
Import duty. No. This is okay. We're going to start, but going to start. How are we going to start? Right? Not like Mexico. We're Tijuana. We're going to border control. America, Canada cannot make any border control. 800 kilometers. Who are going to border control? Right? It's some. Do you know some library? Get in left side is from Canada. Get the right side in America. Inside the same. One library, yeah, city library. Crossing border. Just say said white line border is Canada, America, but everybody get together there. Many houses. So how they going to protect?
Just like Netherlands and Belgium is like.
Exactly. So this is useless. So Canadian people know that, American people know that, Ohio knows that, Ontario knows that, but many people, just who's so much confused. No, you don't. Just actually fact is fact. So you need to see the world, what's happening. So this is very important.
So, but how, if this would play out, let's assume for a while that this is his plan. I don't know whether it's 100% true. I think it
he is not kind of person. He is a bad woman type. And like my wife, I understand his attitude. He just, institutionally, I want to do this. I like that woman, I want to touch this, I want to just prohibit that, and sort of, he's just only doing coming out, and coming out from his mouth. He's thinking deeply, no, just 1 second. He changed his mind. I don't want to meet with North Korea. President, no, I don't want. I want to. He changed. Right, this is his bad woman. Right, don't think in detail. But he's trained by Russian oligarchy. Russian oligarchy got the money. He has very strong connection. Past 10 years, he has very much studied from them. Right, Putin studied a lot of people. Everybody in Russia, he knows that. And there he can get.
But it's the same kind of society as the United States, basically.
No, it is nothing. It's nothing happened to people. Like a kind of president, he tried to neglect everything. Okay, he tried to scratch everything. Immigrant is different. She is one bad woman like that. He is bad one character, racist. He hate black. He hate Latin American people, that immigrant. He like white.
He's also an immigrant, eh?
Yeah, but white immigrant, he very welcome. But Ireland, he hated. He's kind of German, Britain, French, Italy. Okay, Italy, North Europe, Denmark.
Italy more than
Denmark, no, he accepted. He's accepted. But the inferior people, even in white, he don't like it. He's racist, but this is his bad point. But he's not very educated. No way. But he's thinking about change the world. He's right. Some portion is a bad woman, typical cases. I'm very familiar with that. This his word, okay, I can listen to him. This his word is my bullshit, Mulong. This word is this is very good. This is dishonest. This is good. This is liar. So he's just mixing everything. So Japanese cannot distinguish which is good, which is bad. But I can recognize. But his best thing is his new world order. He tried to build new world order. Old world order is I want to forget climate change, just Paris Accord.
So if that world order were to materialize, that basically would mean that America would retreat as the global world power, and the world would be more divided with different countries, everybody looking after him or herself. Is that the world he wants? Is that what America wants?
No. Just he gives them some threat. He gives them some impact for the European people, and then he tried to compromise. He is easy to compromise, but he expressed his mind. Okay, I don't agree with you. G7 conclusion? No, I don't support you. He tried to give them his opinion. His way is then after that, he tried to negotiate. He just after the start tariff for Canada, as soon as after that he called Trudeau, and he said, "Oh, you're stealing American shoes. It's a joke. You can do whatever you like. You don't take so much serious. Why you take so serious?" You know, just I understand what he called to him, but Trudeau is so serious, okay? And I don't do nothing wrong. But Trump said, "Oh, you just daily tariff is 300% for American butter. Stop it, okay? And if you're going to do that, okay, I'm going to appreciate you. And you are stealing our product from America to Canada. I don't care, you know. Border is 800 kilometers. Who's going to control it? I don't. What else do you need, right? You need to seriously cool it down." This is what he said. I understand his what he said. And then he wants to change the world. And Canada, you need to support it.
I think he's doing a good job in turning the world order upside down by introducing these.
Then he said sunset clause. Okay, we're going to stop NAFTA. Even if we're going to stop NAFTA, Canada, nothing damaged because we try to treat you like the same as before. Nothing changed.
Yeah, but they also said that's for Brexit, but that's already hurting the
Brexit is a good question. Why Brexit occurred? Brexit is British people, ordinary people, okay, lower class people, is so frustrating rather than intellectual people. Intellectual people is politician elite against politician elite, ordinary people against them. That they just leave. Okay, they are local people are frustrated. Why frustrated? They are neglected. They are feeling neglected.